Okay, so do you know the best way to start a sales discovery call? And this is important because if you don't grab control of the conversation right at the beginning of it, then you're going to lose control of the entirety of the sales process after that point. So in this video, I'm going to share exactly what you should say at the beginning of your discovery calls, and then what to do straight after that so that you get more deals closed, which is what we're here for, right? And after training 2,500 salespeople who've generated over, at this point, $1.4 billion in new revenue, I've found that the best way to start a sales discovery call is with what's called a pre-frame. Now, a pre-frame is an influence technique used to limit the scope of a conversation and drive it towards a specific outcome. And I start all of my calls with the pre-framing of the way these calls usually go is, and then I'll outline the quickest process to get the buyer through qualification, discovery, and to potentially close the sale. Now, the words that you say when you start your discovery call, this pre-frame, is only half the battle. The other half is how you actually say them. Now, hopefully, right, as you watch this, there's an obvious and clear difference when I angrily say, the way these calls usually go versus calmly going, okay, great. So the way these calls usually go is. And that makes a massive difference to the prospect on the other end of the conversation. Obviously, if you just start screaming at them, they're not going to appreciate it. Now, we could at this point go down the rabbit hole of tonality and body language and these sly and slightly gross influence techniques here. But the truth is that there's a real simple way to shortcut all of that. Instead of trying to trick your buyer, just act like a doctor. So the best metaphor for the mindset behind a successful diagnosis call is to think about acting like a doctor. And when you act like a doctor, you instantly become incredibly influential. And this is due to how our brains are wired. And think of it like this, right? You go and visit a doctor. Let's say you've got a pain in your knee or something. Well, they ask you what the problem is. And then you sit there politely and you answer the questions the best that you can, and you're open and honest with your response to them. Then before they tell you what they think the solution is to your painful problem, your knee that's at this point inflamed in pain, and you want them just to give you the answer, they ask a few more questions. Then they send you for a scan. Then they sit there in their fancy waistcoat, emotionless, making some notes, and then they quiz you on a couple of related points, and perhaps you hadn't even considered that these related points could be tied to the pain that you're in. And then the doctor makes a formal diagnosis and offers a solution, and it's only when they have a full picture of the complete range of diagnosis and questions that they can offer you. And do you see how this is literally the complete opposite of most sales discovery calls? On an average sales discovery call, if the buyer mentions pain whatsoever, even like the slightest of niggles, then the seller gets the product pitch and starts shoving it down the buyer's throat until they inevitably get told to get stuffed, or there's enough pain in the buyer's mind that they go, okay, fine, I'm going to accept this and we'll get a deal done. But this approach immediately kills trust, and it sets you up in the mind of the buyer as a pesky salesperson who isn't really there to help. You're there to just pull cash out of their pocket. And yes, eventually, we'd like to get deals done. Obviously, you and I want to make a ton of money and live amazing lives. But that isn't the best strategy to go about making that happen. If you think about talking less, asking more, and actually, literally genuinely trying to diagnose the buyer's problem after you've taken control of the conversation at the beginning of the diagnosis call, you're going to find that your buyer is going to want to work with you. They're going to want to be open and share the pain points, their issues, and perhaps potential solutions that they've thought up as well. So if we go back to our pre-frame at the beginning of our discovery call and we deliver it in the mindset of a doctor, it might sound something like this. Okay, so the way these calls usually go is, I'm going to ask you a few questions. We're going to look at where you're at right now with your sales performance, where you want to get to, and then we'll look at what's stopping you making that life-changing leap. And if I can help, if I think I can help, well, I'll share a few ways that we might be able to work together. Does that sound good? And that is it. Non-threatening, you are positioning yourself as a trusted asset, a resource that might be able to solve this issue for them. And did you notice the sound good at the end of that statement? Because that might be the most important part of your entire discovery process, and I'll explain why right now. Okay, so how would you feel if someone asked you a question that forced you to answer that question in a specific way? Even if the answer to the question was the correct answer, the answer that you might have said anyway, well, you'd feel manipulated, right? And this is because you would have been manipulated in that situation. And that's what salespeople have been taught to do wrongly for decades upon decades at this point. They do this by asking close-ended questions like, would you like to get started today or tomorrow, rather than genuinely asking the question, does it make sense to get started today? And of course, you hate it when people try to manipulate you, and unsurprisingly, buyers hate it as well. It immediately brings up this sales shield, and it ruins any possibility that we're ever going to have of getting any useful information from them on our discovery call. So instead of being gross and salesy, instead of that, we're going to do what's called a micro close, and we're going to do this throughout the entirety of the discovery call. And the first micro close comes straight after the pre-frame statement. So you're going to say your pre-frame, and then you're going to end it by saying, sound good? If they say yes, well, they've just agreed to follow your plan for the call. You've now got these barriers up either side of all the different things you could talk about and all the places you could go. And you've got quite a linear pathway now to either closing the sale if it's a one-call close, if it's a smaller deal size, or at least booking that next meeting and getting everything on track if it's a more complex B2B sale. And of course, if the buyer says no, which you've allowed them to, you've not forced them, you've not bullied them into a yes in this situation. If they say no, then you just follow up with, okay, great. What do you feel is missing from the plan? And then you shut up and you allow them to answer the question, and they might come to you with a solution or some other piece of information that you hadn't even considered. And this process of asking an open-ended question, where if the buyer says yes, you just carry on with the sales process. If they say no, you give them an opportunity to communicate what they feel should be the next step to move forward. This is called a micro close. And I had a Salesman.com Academy prospect on a discovery call literally yesterday, and I went through this process. I did the pre-frame. I asked, hey, does this sound good? And his name's Jeff. He said no. And this is over Zoom, right? So sometimes communicating over a video call is slightly less subtle than communicating in person. So then I went, okay, no worries. You jumped on this call today. Was I missing something? Is there something else that you wanted us to talk about? And he shared that he just wanted to get started. He'd been watching my videos and podcasts for years at this point. He just wanted to get started. He wanted to skip the discovery call altogether. He was in. He knew how much the program cost. He just wanted to get stuck into it. And so I jumped on the Zoom call. I was in, out, had $5,000 extra in my bank account within literally 5 minutes of jumping on the Zoom call. And that was it. So if you pre-frame your discovery call and then you use a micro close to drop the prospect's selling shield that you and I and everyone else puts up when they deal with a salesperson, that then leads us on to the biggest mistake that sellers make during the beginning of their discovery calls. And that is that they try to tell the prospect what they should want rather than actually just discussing the buyer's issues. Right, I'm here to make you a bunch of money, because you making a bunch of money makes me a bunch of money. And something you've got to wrap your head around, and something that's fundamental to B2B sales, is that telling the buyer the pain that they're in is not anywhere near as motivating as allowing them to tell you what their pain is instead. Why is this? Well, it's pretty obvious, right? People don't like being told how to feel. They will rebel against it, they will push against it, even if you're highlighting the truth. So then how do we create a situation where the buyer tells us where they're currently at and where they want to get to, and then we can see if we can bridge the gap from one side to the other? Well, it's dead simple. All we're going to do is ask questions like a doctor asks questions, to continue this mindset and metaphor of as a doctor throughout the discovery process. And to do this, think of every one of the questions in your discovery call being part of a 3-step process. So we're going to ask the question and see if the buyer knows the answer, because we might have more knowledge about the situation that they're facing than what they do, because we've seen this problem time and time and time again, because our product or service solves it. So we're going to ask the buyer a question, even if they're unsure of what the answer is. And something interesting often happens. Asking questions this way often creates awareness of problems that the buyer didn't even know that they had. So if they ask a question, the buyer goes, yeah, I've got that problem, fantastic, we move forward. If not, we now move on to step 2 of the process, which is to nudge the buyer. We need to give them another perspective, perhaps from a customer that's similar to them, or another perspective from the perspective of someone who didn't take action and suffered major consequences. We need to keep doing this over and over and over again until they do see the impact with the issue. And then once we've gathered a couple of points, we want to recap the information and confirm that the buyer agrees to everything that we just covered with a quick summary. So let me give you an example of this. Let's say I am selling Salesman.com Academy. I'm on a call with someone who's potentially thinking about getting signed up, and I'll make this a bit more real for you. So first I'm going to ask the question. So I might ask, what led you to getting this call booked in with us today? They might turn around and go, oh, I'm not 100% sure. I think I need to improve this sales process or that sales process, but I really like your content. And so I wanted to speak with you. So I might now nudge them because I can see from their application form when they book the call what the likely issues are going to be. So I might go, okay, great. Well, when I work with people like yourself, they tell me that they're struggling with this specific thing. Is that the case for you? And then hopefully they go, oh yeah, now you mention it, that is a problem. So then I'm going to recap this question and nudge. I'm going to say, okay, interesting. So you booked the call because of this thing. And that really cements this thing, whatever that thing may be, prospecting, closing deals, account management, sales mindset, whatever it is. That really cements that thing into the conversation and into the mind of the buyer. And all I have to do at that point, because they've agreed now that this is the thing they need to solve to reach these wider, bigger goals that they want to move towards, all I've got to do, think of it like a series of dominoes. If I knock over that one domino, and there might be 2 or 3 of them in the discovery call that come up, if I can knock them over, remove all of the objections around them, all the objections around the fact that I can solve this problem for the buyer, then it makes complete and utter sense for them to move forward, either to get the deal done. In the case of a Salesman.com Academy call, most of them close on the call itself. Or if, for example, with me, with selling services to wider teams, broader teams, and that might take a couple of calls. And at very least, I get to say at the end of the conversation, okay, well, here are the 3 things that you brought up as a concern. Do you agree that Salesman.com Academy or the wider consulting that I can do could resolve those issues? If they say yes, I go, okay, great. Well, would it make sense to jump on a call at the end of the week? I'll send a proposal over, then we can run through the proposal on that call itself. And this ask, nudge, recap process, it's got to start from the moment that your prospect picks up the phone on a discovery call. Otherwise, if you try to do it like strategically as opposed to genuinely buying into this, the doctor-patient metaphor and mindset falls apart, and it all becomes very bitty and very messy for the buyer. And then they're not sure whether they should trust you, and that is sometimes even worse than just having this big shield up that stops any trust whatsoever. So with that all said, now that you know how to start a discovery call, click this video up here to learn the step-by-step process to actually close them.